Ben, a 33-year-old man, and his 31-year-old wife Eleanor had been married for 6 years, having known each other for a total of 8 years. Their relationship was built on a foundation of love and trust, with Ben describing Eleanor as the love of his life and his soulmate. Their shared life was on a positive path, making plans for significant future milestones, like buying a house and starting a family. One day, Eleanor informed Ben that she was going on a work trip abroad with several co-workers, including her co-worker Dominic, whom Ben had met a few times but never liked. Eleanor said that the trip was related to a big project they were working on, requiring her and her team to stay at a hotel initially before moving to a different location for the main part of the work. When Eleanor flew out for the work trip, she promised to stay in frequent contact, and initially, her communication with Ben was consistent and reassuring. She FaceTimed her husband every evening for the first few days. She shared details about her day and what it was like where she was staying. Ben was reassured that his wife was safe and happy. On the third day of Eleanor's work trip, there was a significant change in their communication. Eleanor's messages to Ben became less frequent and less detailed. In the evening, around 11 p.m. local time, she informed Ben that she was going to the sauna with her female co-workers, an activity common in the country she was visiting. However, the timing of this activity struck Ben as odd, considering it was quite late after a long and stressful day. Later, around 1:30 a.m., Eleanor sent a brief message saying she was going to sleep. Ben felt uneasy from the lack of details and warmth in the text. She was never that abrupt with communication with him in the past. Ben's intuition that something was amiss with Eleanor's behavior led him to check her laptop at home, which had the capability to sync her messages in real time. This allowed him a window into her communications that he otherwise would not have had. As he observed the messages, Ben's suspicions intensified when he discovered a concerning exchange between Eleanor and Dominic. Notably, the last message she sent Dominic was around the same time she had last written to Ben, and it contained a unique emoji, a heart with a band-aid, which was unfamiliar to Ben and seemed out of context. Later, while Ben was preparing for bed with the laptop still open, he witnessed a startling message from Eleanor to Dominic that said, "Come to room 3. The fact that this message was sent late at night escalated Ben's fears and suspicions. The thought that his wife could be unfaithful was deeply distressing. The message brought back painful memories for Ben of being cheated on in a past relationship. His past experiences made him particularly sensitive to signs of infidelity, and seeing similar signs with Eleanor was devastating. He had always trusted Eleanor implicitly before that point. Ben continued to monitor their messages for further developments. Eventually, he saw a response from Dominic saying, "Coming now." However, the message remained unread for several hours, suggesting that Eleanor and Dominic had met up before she even had to open the message to read it. After some time, the entire message thread between Eleanor and Dominic was deleted. This sudden deletion of their conversation was highly suspicious, reinforcing Ben's fears that something was occurring between Eleanor and Dominic. The next day, Eleanor sent a message to another co-worker stating that she had Dominic's phone. The fact that she had his phone raised questions about the circumstances under which she came to possess it, especially in light of the suspicious messages and behaviors from the previous night. Ben's suspicions about Eleanor's relationship with Dominic were further fueled by a recent incident which occurred before her work trip. During an outing for drinks where they met some of Eleanor's co-workers, Ben noticed that Eleanor's behavior towards Dominic was noticeably different compared to others. She interacted with Dominic in a manner that seemed overly familiar and flirtatious. Her body language with him seemed a little too intimate, including prolonged touches and a hug that lasted too long. This distinct change in Eleanor's demeanor around Dominic stood out to Ben, especially since she had been less affectionate towards him during that period. The incident planted a seed of doubt in his mind about the nature of Eleanor's relationship with Dominic, contributing to his heightened awareness and concern during her trip. There was another incident prior to the trip where Eleanor left their home after a heated argument with Ben. While she was out of the house, he checked her iPad and discovered a conversation where Eleanor had made plans to have drinks with another man she hadn't seen in years. This conversation too was deleted in real time. When confronted, Eleanor denied everything and became defensive without ever providing a clear explanation. This pattern of deleting messages and her inconsistent responses mirrored the secretive and evasive behavior Ben was observing in her interactions with Dominic. That night, Eleanor video called Ben. During the call, he observed red marks on her neck, extending down to the area between her breasts. These marks were clearly visible due to the clothing she was wearing. They appeared to be hickeys or love bites. When Ben asked about these marks, Eleanor seemed surprised, and it was a rash from her scarf. Ben thought this explanation was highly implausible. After the call ended, Ben stayed awake for over 36 hours to closely watch Eleanor's messages, looking for more signs of infidelity. He focused especially on her interactions with Dominic, searching for clear evidence of what was really going on between them. The whole situation was causing a lot of anxiety and affecting him mentally. As Ben kept watch, more flirtatious texts between his wife and Dominic came through. These messages were playful and hinted at more than just a co-worker relationship. There was a message where Eleanor talked about resting her head on Dominic's shoulder during the flight, which seemed way too intimate for colleagues. Ben reached a tipping point and decided to seek legal advice. He consulted a lawyer to understand his options and the implications of the situation, particularly in the context of potential infidelity. Acting on legal counsel, he chose to cut off direct contact with Eleanor. After Ben stopped talking to her and got a lawyer involved, Eleanor acted like she didn't understand why he was doing this. She talked to their friends, trying to get sympathy by saying she didn't know what made Ben act so drastically. Her behavior might have been an attempt to influence what others thought about the situation, or could have been real confusion if she didn't know Ben was aware of her messages and actions. However, Ben saw her act of not knowing as more deception, which made him feel even more distant from her and more determined to follow through with legal action. Eleanor was distressed and confused and sent emails hinting at having suicidal thoughts. She was evidently struggling emotionally and feeling overwhelmed by the situation, which raised serious concerns for Ben. Concerned for his wife's well-being, he called the police to conduct a welfare check on her. He still cared for her despite their strained relationship. He wanted to ensure that Eleanor was safe and not in immediate danger, which was confirmed. Eleanor responded to the situation by emailing Ben her side of the story. In her email, she strongly denied being physically unfaithful, but admitted that she had crossed emotional boundaries with Dominic. She confessed to engaging in flirtatious and emotionally intimate behavior that went beyond a normal work relationship. Although she insisted there was no physical affair, her emotional closeness with Dominic was a significant breach of the trust in her marriage with Ben. Ben was torn about whether to divorce Eleanor. Although he deeply loved her, he felt profoundly betrayed by her emotional infidelity. The decision was made more difficult by the lack of clear evidence of her being physically unfaithful. This left Ben in a challenging position, struggling to decide whether the emotional indiscretions were enough reason for a divorce, and wrestling with the complexities of trust and the future of their marriage. Eleanor's behavior became more unpredictable. She made a sudden and unexpected decision to transfer their car's ownership to Ben. This erratic action seemed like a hasty response driven by her emotional state. These behaviors could be seen as signs of Eleanor's desperation and instability, possibly reflecting guilt or an attempt to reconcile with Ben. However, they also raised questions about whether she was trying to manipulate the situation. For Ben, this only added to the confusion and difficulty in understanding Eleanor's true intentions. Ben faced a tough emotional struggle. He was worried about Eleanor's mental health due to her disturbing behavior. At the same time, he was troubled by uncertainties regarding the full extent of her actions and her relationship with Dominic. Ultimately, Ben decided to move forward with the divorce, despite still dealing with a lot of emotions and unanswered questions. He felt a mix of sadness and confusion about Eleanor's actions and their marriage's breakdown. Even though he decided to divorce her, he was still trying to understand everything that happened and cope with the impact it had on him.